Helljumpers, Epilogue, Part 2. Scootaloo was standing in front of the building she had called home before she got lost in space. One side of the building was in the classic style Octavia favored, and the other side in the modern style Vinyl liked. Scootaloo lifted the floor mat, which revealed a key laying in the exact same place as she remembered where it always lay. She opened the door to the living room and entered. Octavia would usually be practicing there, but while her cello was present, the Earth Pony herself wasn't. The other side of the room was Vinyl's. Her mixing set was missing, so Scootaloo guessed she was up in Canterlot's to set up for a show in a nightclub. This was also the reason why Vinyl had turned out to be more of a big sister than a mom, unlike Octavia, who always seemed to be home when she was. Scootaloo continued walking through the house in search of the Earth Pony musician, eventually coming across the kitchen. Octavia was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of water, and a picture of Scootaloo. A lump formed in the filly's throat, as she hadn't been noticed yet.
Mom?
The glass of water immediately dropped to the floor and shattered, spilling its contents all over the ground. She turned around and locked eyes with Scootaloo.
Scootaloo?
Scootaloo shot forward and hugged her caretaker.
I was so scared that I'd never see you or Vinyl ever again.
She sobbed into the mare's coat.
I was too, my little filly. I was too.
Octavia answered, as she tightly held the Pegasus.
Vinyl is in Canterlot's for the first show she's given in months.
Octavia told Scootaloo, as she drew out of the hug and gasped.
Scootaloo! Your face! I know, Mom. Don't worry, it doesn't hurt. I'll tell you about it when we get to the others at Sugar Cube Corner. Twilight's friends also deserve to know about it,
She said, as she got off her mom's lap.
I'm sure Twilight will want to go to Canterlot anyway to visit the princesses and her parents so we can immediately go find Vinyl. Alright, let me get some stuff before we leave.
Octavia smiled, as she quickly grabbed a scarf, hat, and hoof warmers. The two closed the door behind them and quickly made their way to Sugar Cube Corner, where they could see a group of ponies were already present inside. Scootaloo walked into the building first. She could see Rainbow perk up immediately.
Squirt!
She shouted, as she embraced the filly in a hug. Octavia came walking into the store after her, and cleared her throat.
Princess, I heard that you might want to go to Canterlot, but if we are to make it anytime soon, we would have to take the train immediately.
Twilight looked at the musician.
It's just Twilight for you, Octavia. You know that. And as how we're going to get to Canterlot quickly, ask Scootaloo.
Everyone turned to Scootaloo as Twilight had repeated that sentence multiple times now. Ask Scootaloo. The Pegasus started grinning like a mad mare as she understood what Twilight meant.
No barrel rolls.
Twilight flatly told the filly before she could get any ideas.
Yes, Sergeant. What's my pickup point?
Scootaloo asked as she was ready to get the pelican. Twilight levitated a smoke grenade from her saddlebag.
Green smoke. Copy that. I'll be back in a bit,
She said, as she ran outside, followed by Rainbow.
Wait up, Squirt! Wait, you're flying? I know! Isn't it awesome? The humans fixed my wings!
Scootaloo laughed as she rapidly approached Sweet Apple Acres.
Wow, I mean, now I can teach you tips and tricks and stuff.
Rainbow said happily, as she did a couple of aerial maneuvers.
You're not the only one, Dash. I'm pretty sure I could also teach you a couple of things. So, we could teach each other.
Scootaloo laughed as she checked her heading and adjusted course towards the dropship.
So, Squirt, why are we flying towards the Everfree?
Dash asked as the thick tree line started coming really close. Scootaloo scanned the environment once again and spotted her goal.
Because I needed some space to land, and I ended up setting down between the farm and the forest.
She answered as she pointed at the pelican. Rainbow's eyes went wide as she saw the large green dropship.
Wow. What's that? It's a pelican. We can easily get everyone to Canterlot with it.
Scootaloo said as she opened the ramp at the back of the craft. Rainbow looked at the interior in awe.
How is it getting up to Canterlot, though? It's not going to fit through the main gate of the city. Because we're not taking the main gate,
Scootaloo said as she strapped into the pilot seat and activated the power supply.
We're flying over it.
Before Dash could reply, Scootaloo flicked the last switch and activated the turbines.
Strap into the seat.
She shouted over the engine noise as she closed the back hatch. A dumbstruck Rainbow quickly secured herself into the co-pilot seat.
Now don't touch any buttons because I still have to fly this thing.
Scootaloo said, as the Pelican shuddered for a moment and lifted up from the ground.
This thing flies?
Rainbow shouted, as she finally got back to her senses. Scootaloo just laughed as she had the same reaction to the Pelican. The filly steered the craft in the direction of Ponyville, careful to fly over the outskirts and not the center of the village, as to not scare the inhabitants too much. She suddenly saw a cloud of green smoke coming from an open space at the east side of the village and adjusted her course appropriately. Scootaloo snickered as she saw a group of ponies at the edge of the field staring up at her.
Setting her down,
she said, as the Pelican touched down. She turned off the turbines as well, as it would be easier to convince ponies to hop into the craft when it wasn't roaring like a manticore.
I'm green, Twilight,
she reported, making Rainbow raise an eyebrow.
You know she can't hear you from here, right?
Scootaloo grabbed an earpiece from a box beside her and tossed it to Rainbow.
Put that in your ear,
she told the Blue Pegasus, who obeyed.
Just saw a couple of day and night guards enter the clearing, so we have to talk them down before we can take back off.
She heard Twilight's voice coming from the earpiece.
Wait, you can speak to Twilight from here?
Dash asked Scootaloo, but got the answer from Twilight.
Yep. Useful, isn't it?
A couple of knocks on the hull could be heard.
Scootaloo, can you open the ramp and speak to the guards? Don't worry, Twilight, I know those guys. I kinda work with them,
Rainbow said, as she got out of her chair and walked to the back.
Thanks, Rainbow. I'll try and calm Fluttershy down sufficiently for her to get into the Pelican in the meanwhile.
The ramp lowered down, revealing 7 tensed-up guards of both branches with weapons at the ready. All of them looked up confused as Rainbow trotted out of the craft. Rainbow, what the buck are you doing in that thing? Moonlight the Thestral Stallion asked, incredulously.
Tell them this is sanctioned by me. I'll be there in a couple of seconds. Just stall them for a moment,
Twilight said over the radio, as she was listening in on the conversation.
I was getting a lift in this thing. We're picking up a couple of ponies before we continue on towards Canterlot,
Dash explained to him. Is this sanctioned by one of the princesses? He asked skeptically.
Twilight just did,
Rainbow told him, but only seemed to confuse him more. Dreamwalking stuff? He asked.
No, more like via radio contacts,
Twilight said from behind the group of guards as she came walking up to the dropship with the group of ponies.
Stand down, boys. This one's on me,
she told the guards. Your Highness, forgive us. We weren't informed about your return, Moonlight said as he bowed deeply for the alicorn with the other guards. Scootaloo fell onto the floor of the Pelican laughing.
Holy crap, you guys know a simple salute would have just been enough for her.
Twilight coughed, getting the attention of the guards back onto herself. She motioned for them to rise, as them being on the ground was unnerving to her.
As my corporal said, you don't have to bow. Anyway, I need you 7 to clear the area before we take off and make sure that the Ponyville residents know we're not dangerous to them.
The 7 guards threw a quick salute and ran off to the edge of the clearing to make sure no pony approached too close. Then the group of ponies entered the dropship.
Rumble, what are you doing here?
Scootaloo asked the Grey Pegasus Colt.
He's a Crusader initiate, since we couldn't make him a full Cutie Mark Crusader without your vote,
Apple Bloom said, as she walked up next to the Colt.
I guess he's a nice Colt, though I'm gonna test his guts before I'm allowing him in,
Scootaloo thought, as she looked at the Pegasus.
Yeah, sure, strap in. I'll decide my vote later,
Scootaloo said, blushing furiously. She turned around to see Twilight grinning at her.
Remember to keep your hopes to yourself,
she told the filly, as her coat turned from orange to beet red.
I hate you, Sarge,
she said, as she swiftly disappeared into the cockpit, leaving Twilight to make sure everyone was secure. As Twilight gave the go-ahead, Scootaloo closed the hatch and restarted the turbine. She could see a large crowd from the village looking at the craft in awe as it rose into the sky and started moving towards Canterlot.
So how fast is this thing, Scoots?
Rainbow asked with her earpiece. Scootaloo put her voice on the intercom.
Much faster than you are, Dash.
She could hear the Blue Pegasus laughing out back. Scootaloo put her hooves on the throttle and pushed it forward a bit. The Pelican shuddered a bit for a moment.
We're now flying Mach 1.07. So you just broke the sound barrier. No sweat, I can do that.
Rainbow said nonchalantly, as her voice echoed over the speakers. Scootaloo grinned as she pushed the throttle up to 50%, and the craft suddenly felt the acceleration.
Mach 2.04. I could do that.
Dash said, much more uncertain of her abilities. Scootaloo took that as her cue to push the throttle even further.
60% power for atmospheric thrusters. We're now going at Mach 3.20. Decreasing power, Canterlot ETA, 4 minutes.
Scootaloo reported, as she heard Rainbow sputtering in the back.
Oh, don't feel bad, Dash. This thing is built to enter space itself. It can fly more than 40 times the speed of sound if it really needs to. You just broke Dash.
Twilight laughed as the Pelican shuddered again for a moment due to it going below the speed of sound once again.
That's technology.
Alarms started going off throughout the cockpit.
Missile lock!
Scootaloo shouted, as she immediately went into evasive maneuvers.
Firing flares!
The red heat sources got ejected from the back of the craft. Twilight lit her horn and immediately felt something probing her.
False alarm, Hurricane. Luna's performing a scrying spell that's screwing with her sensors.
Scootaloo let out a breath she had been holding.
Copy that, Sergeant. I'll keep the acrobatics to a minimum from now on. Everyone okay back there? The Earth ponies are almost universally sick, but other than that, we're good.
Twilight said, as Scootaloo leveled out and made for an open spot in the castle gardens.
Well, I guess our element of surprise is gone with Luna checking us out. That's Princess Luna for you, Squirt.
Rainbow called from out back, the filly raising her eyebrow.
Since when do you care about titles? Night Guard.
Dash simply stated, but it was enough for Scootaloo to make the connection.
Oh, right.
Scootaloo powered down the turbines for a third time that day and opened the ramp. Man, for one loud, big piece of metal, they are very defensive. But hey, I can't blame them. Anywho, let's get on to our royal donators. Top donators are 630, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, and IronSky. Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin, Rolan, Stu Hex, Swordbrother, and Mordred, Omicron, Lyrae, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Riot Soul, Badass Waffle, Shadow Moon, Luigi88, Chancer Crust, Big Smoke 369, and many more awesome people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.